So chapter 3 in my book is all about what I call a developmental mindset. And yes, I talk about Piaget and Robbie and Erik Erikson and their ideas about human cognitive and psychosocial development. But the big takeaway is this developmental mindset that raises our awareness of a very true fact, that a teacher may not ever have a classroom of students who are developing through the same developmental stages at the same time and at the same rate. Yet when people talk about things like differentiation for students who need different kinds of support and scaffolding, and I don't just mean learning disabilities or special education needs, I'm talking about what we might expect to see in any third grade classroom. But when we talk about differentiation, it's mostly about how to address learning that's just a year behind, or using different kinds of accommodations, visual aids, things that speak to different modes of learning. And so I'm not saying that all of that isn't important. I'm saying that this has never been enough. Sure, a teacher might have a third grade classroom where every single student is solidly developing through a concrete operational stage of cognitive development. And maybe the majority of them are full steam ahead on the side of industriousness, with very few students experiencing inferiority psychosocially. In which case, the differentiation strategies they apply are likely working for the majority of those students. But what about those few students who might need that extra bit of developmental support, but are not necessarily experiencing a specific learning challenge? What if they're just still working through a pre-operational stage of cognitive development, or are developing a sense of inferiority rooted in challenges from their earlier development of initiative versus guilt? What if it isn't necessarily an academic challenge? Now walk into a 7th grade classroom and just try to distinguish which students are well into their formal operational stage of cognitive development and firm in their identity as a scholar, as a citizen of their school and community, versus the students who may still be functioning in that concrete operational cognitive stage and maybe struggling with inferiority and perhaps already developing a sense of role confusion rather than identity. The traditional solution to all of this is to maintain consistency in the rules and consequences, because kids need structure, right? Yes, but applying one set of rules and consequences based on one set of academic expectations that some students are not academically ready to conceptually unpack, or are based on a list of behavioral expectations that some students are not psychosocially ready to internalize beyond a pre-conventional moral understanding of those rules and consequences. Like, if their understanding of your rules are to simply keep from being punished, they aren't fully developing their sense of identity as a scholar whose actions are impacting their community in the classroom, in the school, and their community at large. That traditional carrot and stick model may be the traditional belief we believe worked for us, but we may not have experienced school the same way some of our peers struggled to understand in the classroom next to ours. And don't forget that the students who are struggling to keep up developmentally may also be struggling conceptually with the steady increase in academic expectations due to just a few gaps in 3rd grade that were made worse with a few gaps in 4th grade, which made it hard to keep gaps from forming in 5th grade and so on. So you add all of that up, and what you get is a dire need for schools to adopt a developmental mindset. This idea underscores the reason for adopting a standards-based and social-emotional approach to teaching and learning that can actually help to individualize learning in ways that promote developmental footholds, like what we're talking about, industriousness versus inferiority, identity versus role confusion, to promote autonomy, competence, relatedness in all students by meeting them where they're at and setting specific, measurable, attainable, reasonable goals. So chapter 3 is the 3rd primary concept that overlaps with the other 2 concepts, standards-based and social-emotional learning, to create what I've been calling a self-directed schooling environment.